right, here we go. Let's do this. So I'm going to keep in line with Pastor Scott's risky business because I want to talk a little bit about my experience church planting and the loss that I experienced after I had to shut it down. It's been a really painful journey for me to walk the walk. I've cried, I've been angry, I've laughed, I've made fun of God, I've done all kinds of things through this process. And I'm hoping today, as I preach and I walk through this sermon today, I will begin to let go of the pain that I have experienced from this. I'm angry at people, I'm angry at God, I'm angry at the church, and it's been a really hard journey for me to walk. And so we're going to dive right into it today, and we're going to talk about my pain, because with risk, comes a little bit of pain, and that's something I've had to learn about here. So let's talk a little bit about it. This is what I feel like right now. I like this picture on Pastor Scott's slides. I feel like I'm walking through this fog, and that this fog is just never going to go away, and I just keep walking through it, and walking through it, and walking through it. And so I feel like that man, not really fishing. If I could take a fishing pole off, I would. But I feel like that man that's just staring into the water right now. So I decided to begin St. Luke's, and let me back up actually just a little bit. A few months ago, I said that St. Luke's was going to go on a sabbatical. Well, we have since decided to close it, and it's just this lack of commitment, and it was just the end of its season. So I began St. Luke's because I wanted a place that embodied the Catholic values, not Roman Catholic, but independent Catholic values, that would accept everybody that walked through the doors with no rules and no stipulations. We wanted to allow everybody to come to this table to receive the Eucharist, no matter who, what, or where you were in your life's journey. And so we created that. We had some great years at it, and we had some risky moments. We had some painful moments, and we had some very pleasurable moments. That's why I need the risk, pleasure, and pain. Risk, pain, and pleasure. So the risk was opening this church up. We opened it, and we had we opened it in Plainfield, Indiana. So I should share with you that it wasn't here at Faith. When we first opened, we opened it in Plainfield, and we had a good turnout. We moved here, and we still did, and it just started to fizzle out. And unfortunately, when you get into churches, and most people know this, people fight amongst themselves, and we were priests, not parishioners, priests were fighting, and bishops in our communion were fighting amongst themselves, and I'm like, I'll have enough of this, I'm done, I'm just here to preach God's word, and I'm not worried about what that rule book says about how I should break the bread up here at the table. So we moved through, we had good times, and then we got to the point where attendance just started to fall off. And one of the important things in a church is that commitment to come to church. And that's a hard thing to do, I get it, because we compete with things in the world, but, God is there for us all the time. And so having a commitment to come to church was important. And so my last kind of ending for it was we had 2 people that showed up for church, and we had 3 guests that came in. And that was a little bit of an embarrassing moment for me because it didn't look like we were a church. So it was really difficult. So through this process, Deacon Michael and I, and some of you who know Vicki Parton, we all 3 got together and we talked about it. We talked about the hurt. I talked about the hurt I was feeling, and then, this fall we were going to revisit it, and we decided to close. Well, it was a painful decision for me, and I hate it because the sacraments mean so much to me. I love faith, and we come periodically, but I've been taking a break from church. And so when Scott kind of asked me to preach today, I actually didn't want to. I just didn't tell him no. So on Monday I was like, what am I going to do? So we're going to dive into the pain I was experiencing and how I started to handle that pain. And I think it really is important how we handle pain in our lives. So pain is a universal experience for us. So there's different kinds of pain. We feel physical pain. We feel emotional pain. I was feeling emotional pain through this. It just kept building and building and building for me. Then we have different degrees of pain. We have people who are feeling emotionally hurt so deep that sometimes they can't get past that. That's about where I was. Then we have people who are dealing with severe medical pain. pain that's physical for them. I wouldn't say emotional is not physical, but we're talking about physical ailments, and so, we've got different degrees of pain. Then some pain is open. Sometimes people are open in their pain. You know what they're going through. And then some pain is closed. And I want to give you an example of that. God rest her soul. But Mary Jo, she had closed pain. Nobody really knew that she was in much pain as she was. And so I was very blessed, along with Steve and Deacon Michael, to administer communion to her for the last time. And it was there that we learned really how much pain she had been experiencing through her life. So sometimes that pain is closed and we don't know the pain that people are going through. Sometimes pain is closed off to even ourselves. And that's where my pain was. I didn't even realize I was experiencing this pain. I started to put a wall up to say I'm not going to confront this at all. Pain most of the time creates some type of loss in our lives. And there are some good points with loss that we're going to talk about here. Pain, of course, leads to loss. Loss leads to grief. We start to grieve what we've lost. And then grief leads us to question God. And that's where I was. I began to question God. And I remember sitting at Pastor Scott's mother's house on her boat saying, I don't believe God exists anymore. And that's a pretty bold statement for a priest to say when you stood up here just a week, or just the day before, actually, doing communion. It's a pretty bold statement, but this is what we experience when we start to experience pain. These are real, and this is okay. It took me a second to get there, but this is okay for us to experience. While we have many different types of things that cause the pain, the response for pain is the same across the board. We all experience these things. You're not alone when you go through this stuff. It's something I had to learn, that I was not alone through this process. So we've got some responses to pain. We withdraw. I withdrew. You can ask Michael. I withdrew big. I just started to pull away. Then I started to get aggressive. I started to lash out at people because I wanted it to be that person's fault. I started to get aggressive because I knew deep down inside that I had a part to play in this too. Then I started to question God's goodness. And I'm like, well, he just isn't good. This just isn't happening. He's letting people die. And then I started to overcompensate. And let me tell you how I overcompensated. Johan, stand up for me. This is Johan. He's my foreign exchange student from Norway. In the midst of all this, I said, I'm going to bring a 16-year-old into my house. And we had good. So he's a good friend. So I overcompensated. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to take on the world now. And those he might say I thought, oh my gosh, God. Oh, this is amazing. The sermon's really important. So I brought Johan over here from Norway. And it was quite the battle to get him over here. No schools would accept him. And then finally, we reached out to Riverside High School in downtown, and they were just so open to taking him. And everything fell into place. And while I overcompensated, there's something good that came from that. There's something good that came from him coming over here. I started to begin to experience the love that a parent has for a child. And that love has become unconditional even in our short 2 months. Because I have to care for this kid. I have to make sure he eats, to make sure he layers up, even though he's from Norway. This whole isn't even anything to experiences. But something did come from that overcompensation, and it will come from that overcompensation. Because I do very much believe God provides an answer in the time of stress in our lives, and in the time of pain. So I'm going to take you to Matthew 4, 23 through 25, because this is an important story, and this is one I really focused on, because it's going to help us to work through that pain. Jesus went through Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing. And that's an important word there. Healing is very important here, because Jesus and healing, they go hand in hand. every disease and sickness among the people. News about him spread all over Syria, and people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed. And here we've got that heal word again, and he healed them. Large crowds from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Beech Grove, Judea, and region across the Jordan followed him. Now, we do laugh about the Beech Grove thing, but remember, God is present in our lives here in Beech Grove. And I put Beech Grove because I wanted to get a good laugh, little line of bell. So, obviously, those of you, if you know your Bible, you know he didn't go to Beech Grove. So, the point of this story, though, is that Jesus understands pain. He really understands pain a lot. The next slide I'm going to show you, because he actually experienced suffering. He experienced death, and he experienced rising in death. And that's what keeps me pushing on. So here's a little bit of how pain works, and he experienced these same things we're about to talk about. He experienced rejection. Those of you that know the Bible knows that he was rejected in almost every city that he went into. And then the biggest rejection, was of the Jewish people at that time. Not of the Jewish people, I should say of like Caiaphas, the high priest at that time. He was betrayed. We know Judas betrayed him. And so sometimes we feel betrayal as we're going through pain. We feel that rejection. We feel that betrayal. And then sometimes we get to the point, and I was here a little bit last week. I was here actually on Sunday night, and then a little bit through Monday, I started to experience shame for some of the actions that I had actually let happen, that I knew better as a human being and as a priest, actually more importantly. So we experience all these things, and God experiences these things, or Jesus experienced these things too with us. So the biggest question I would ask to you, and it's a big one for me, is do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? It's a rough question to answer. It was a rough question for me to answer. So I'm going to take you to a story, and before we go to that story, I want you to know that Jesus was just up in the mountains, and he was teaching. Some of you will know the Beatitudes, the blessed bees. And so by this point in Jesus' journey, a lot of scholars think he was tired, and he was exhausted from teaching. But Jesus, he found the energy to keep pushing on. So I'm going to take you through this story. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, and I want to talk a little bit about leprosy here. If those of you that are pretty good in theology or know your Bible, leprosy was the person, the people with leprosy, they were marginalized. They were the most marginalized probably in the Bible. No one would talk to them. They weren't allowed to touch them. They were considered to be dirty. They were considered to be the lowest of the low. So that's an important thing to know as we move on. But before we go on to the next one, I want to say a man with leprosy came and knelt before him and had said, and one of the things that he did here, because he knew he was going to have to take his own, getting rid of his pain in his hands, he actually removed barriers. And that's the first thing we've got to do when we're dealing with pain, is we've got to begin to remove those barriers. Something that I have had to work really hard to do is to remove those barriers. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. You can make me clean. There's another important point here too, is we must develop a better attitude. And that's a big thing that I've had to learn to do as well. The big thing is to develop a better attitude. Because no bells really do ring for God to tell you everything is okay. We hear him speak to us, but it'd be great if it was, the bells just started. When I woke up in the morning, he said, come on, Ryan, we're going to push through this. But they don't, and so we must develop a better attitude. We remove those barriers, and we develop a better attitude. Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. And immediately he was cleansed of his leprosy. So mind you, Jesus has been teaching and teaching and teaching and is exhausted, but he takes the time to heal this man. And sometimes we have to take that time in our lives to say we're going to deal with this pain. If we want hurt to be healed, we must confront it, and that is risky business. And that goes along the same line of what Scott's been teaching about, is it is risky. Life is risky. Things happen that are risky in life, and we're going to experience pain from that. Faith is risky business. Nobody ever said walking this path with Christ was going to be easy. It's difficult. There are struggles and struggles and struggles and struggles that happen that you may never find answers to. It is difficult to walk that path with God, and it takes an absolute strong individual to stay committed to God. And I don't know a lot of people, that are able to do it 100% of the time, because we are human beings. We are going to fail. I failed. I had a part to play in St. Luke's closing, just like everybody else did around me. And that's been a difficult thing for me to come to terms with, because I wanted to blame everybody else around that. But I had a part too. And some people think that the Catholic faith is silly, and that I was being silly. But the fact is, it meant a lot to me, and I'm allowed to feel that pain, and I'm allowed to feel that hurt. And now I've got to work through it. So faith is risky business. And I don't know what God's going to take me to next. I don't know what path I'm going to walk, but I'm going to trust Him. And doing this sermon has helped me immensely to say I'm going to move past it, and that I'm going to do this exact thing. God wants to heal you completely from the hurt in your lives. He wants to. Now, the one thing I want to say to you, though, is that doesn't mean we're not going to feel pain in our lives, because we will. And it'll hurt, and it'll be difficult. But I think that when we walk with God and when we walk with Christ, that pain will be healed. And sometimes we don't know when that'll be. Sometimes it'll be tomorrow. Sometimes it might be 2 weeks. Sometimes it might be a year. But that pain will eventually be healed. And the one thing I'm clinging on to, is the strength that I saw in Mary Jo when I sat by her and I administered communion and I watched her walk this journey. So God wants to heal us. God wants to heal me from this. And that's the important thing to remember. Amen.